morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. When I give a talk before Prof. Chan, and we've been giving this talk a few times, and I always say it's mine as appetizer, the main course is coming for the breakfast. Now, we talk about unmet needs for osteoporosis management, and I'm sure that all of you have seen your patients appear this way, walking the clinic. I'm going to highlight a few points on what are the current issues that arise while we're managing patients with osteoporosis, particularly post-menopausal osteoporosis. So, of course, to wake you up in the morning before 8, osteoporosis is defined as a skeletal disorder, which is actually compromised bone strength, and the bone strength refers to the bone quantity and the bone quality. And of course, the bone quality is the main issue now. And you know that in osteoporosis, the change is not only at the cancellous bone, it is also at the cortical bone. That's why now most of the agents, when they have all the published data, they talk about micro-architecture improvement, not only in the cancellous bone and also in the cortical bones. And particularly for the past few years, a lot of emphasis on the cortical bone changes and also the improvement in terms of the cortical porosity, the structures after treatment. And as orthopedic surgeons, it's something that we're very, very concerned about, because when we handle someone with normal bone quality and someone with osteoporotic bone, this is how the screw feels. As a surgeon, we put a screw in, the interface between a normal bone and the screws, and also the osteoporotic bone with the screws, the interface is very, very markedly different. And you see screw sinks into the bone, you see screw pull out of the bone. And all this because of poor bone quality as well as the micro-architectural changes of the bone. So when we talk about osteoporosis, we used to be worried about the Western populations, the American, the European, but I think all of us realize that, all of us know that osteoporosis is going to be a big issue in Asia. In Asian countries, this is a silent epidemic, a silent killer that actually going to bring a lot of our patients down when they reach 50, 60, 80, 90 years old for the next 50 years. Therefore, you can see it's projected that hip fractures incidence definitely is going up in Asian countries. This is a very common, very popular slide that all of you share. One of the biggest challenges we have in Asian countries is it is still a very neglected disease, it's a very neglected condition. From very young to the very old, and everybody talks about diabetes, AIDS, ischemic heart disease. When they talk about bone health, skeletal health, even among the medical professionals, there was no emphasis given on this aspect. Not to say public awareness is definitely much worse in a lot of Asian countries. And the healthcare providers also do not really look at this bone health or skeletal health as an important issue. So to start off, when they talk about treatment, the recognition of the importance of the disease is the biggest challenge to start off. If the patient don't come forward, if the public don't come forward to you and say, to see a doctor to ask them, am I having osteoporosis? You're going to miss a lot of patients. It is still a very neglected disease. And in terms of the treatment, the most basic elements that we talk about always is the calcium, vitamin D. I think that calcium is not an issue because a lot of people realize the importance of calcium. But for the past 5 to 10 years, a lot of data, a lot of studies has actually shown that vitamin D inadequacy is an issue even in Asian countries. Something that many of us cannot accept, cannot recognize, and many of our patients and our health professionals do not recognize this or accept that. How can in Asian countries our people have vitamin D inadequacy? So this is one of a very basic challenge that we have. We have to convince people that they are actually people, Asian people, who do not have broadly, of course, you can divide them into this anti-resorptive and also bone-forming agents, and also those with dual actions or combination of anti-resorptive and bone-forming agents. Basically, in osteoporosis, bone loss is much higher, much faster than bone gain. So most of the drugs available now is targeting at anti-resorptive. One or two have bone-forming effect. So what will happen? That's most of our drugs are actually most anti-resorptive. And as you know, different drugs have different potency. Some are very potent anti-resorptive, some are lower sort of anti-resorptive actions. But we always emphasize the importance of calcium vitamin D for all patients who go for treatment. And all these drugs are meant to reduce fractures, all fractures, vertebral, non-vertebral, mild, moderate, to severe fractures. Because the ultimate aim point is prevent fractures or prevent second fractures, third fractures. This is a guide. Many of us adopted this one. And we know that many of us, our patients, when they reach menopause, some of them we choose HRT. But not to forget the basic elements: lifestyle, calcium vitamin D, and normally for a younger group, hormone replacement HRT might be a first choice. And I think a lot of our gynae, obstetric or gynae colleagues, they advise patients on the importance of this, particularly for those who have a lot of post-menopausal symptoms. And that will be followed by serum, bisphosphonates, or even teriparatide for the older people with severe multiple fractures. But is there something that can go across the whole spectrum here, from very young to the very old? It's something that can give anti-resorptive and of course bone forming as well. As I say, the main cause is coming. All right? Now, the basic difference is that the agents that we have is bone forming and bone or anti-resorptive agents. Try to bring down the resorption activity. At the same time, of course, there are agents that help us build bone. And you know that most of our anti-resorptive, particularly bisphosphonate group, bring the resorption down, and some of them very potent anti-resorptive, which brings your even resorptions markers can show that it's actually below so-called the physiological range of window. So something that when you bring it down too much, might not be a good sign, might not be a good thing to do. Therefore, everyone try to find what is actually the normal physiological window. What is a safe window that, when we put someone on anti-resorptive? Because we know that if the anti-resorption is actually too high, you might get something called oversuppression of the resorption. And that affects the mineralization of the bone, especially the secondary mineralizations, where the bone becomes homogeneously mineralized, which is not good compared with heterogeneous mineralization of a bone. Therefore, over the past few years, I believe since 2004, we have seen cases coming up this way. Patients were put on bisphosphonate, who actually come to us, to orthopedic surgeon with these kind of fractures. Some people accept, this is something real. Some people believe that, that might be true. But of course, we're still waiting, and there's still reports coming out to say that there are some patients come to us with atypical fractures, the femur, at the femoral shaft, or the sacrum. This is a real concern for orthopedic surgeon, because when we operate someone with atypical fractures, the feeling of the femur when you go in is very different from the usual femur that you handle. What you can see on an X-ray, this is a particular patient or case report. I think more and more case reports coming up, and series are coming up. A patient with a right femur, and a few years later, a